this movie was definitely better than I remembered it being. I think before I had it rated at like a 6 out of 10. I was like, yeah, it's good, but like, whatever. But as I was watching it today, I was like, mwah. Like this was a lot better. Hi, welcome to Remembering the MCU. My name is Aurelius, and today we will be talking about Captain America, the first Avenger. If this is your first time on my channel, welcome. And if you've been here before, extra welcome. I'm making these videos because in 2023, we had an abominable year for superhero movies. We had 4 DC movies that absolutely bombed, and we had 3 MCU movies, and 2 of those absolutely bombed. One of them was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and that did decently enough. From what I've heard, it's a really good movie, but I have not watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So, it's been a while since I've watched any of the MCU movies, and so I wanted to go back, and I wanted to remember what we had back in the 2010s, by Avengers Endgame. And I kind of want to just remember what it was like watching these movies. So, and also I want to go ahead and say, spoiler warning for this movie: if you have not seen Captain America: The First Avenger, I am not going to hold back on any spoilers. You've been warned. Alrighty, let's get into it. So, one of the things I was thinking about this movie when I was watching it was this, up to this point, this is the most universe feeling, like it's the most MCU feeling movie. And what I mean by that is, it's the movie that feels the most like it's in a shared universe versus versus Thor or Hulk or Iron Man. This movie, Captain America: The First Avenger, is the one that feels the most like it is in a Marvel universe versus the others. And let me explain kind of what I mean by that. So in Iron Man, right, you only have the Iron Man stuff. In Thor, you really only have the Thor stuff. In the Hulk, you really only have the Hulk stuff. But in each one of those, you have a little bit of S.H.I.E.L.D. sprinkled in throughout each of those movies. Also Iron Man 2 as well, which you have a lot more S.H.I.E.L.D. introduced in that. Which Iron Man 2 is getting a little bit closer into the MCU territory. But the reason why I say this one really feels like it is in the Marvel universe is because it takes something from the Hulk, it takes something from Iron Man, and it takes something from Thor. Here's what I mean. Alrighty, so firstly, Thor. It uses the Norse mythology. There's several times that Schmidt is talking about the gods, and he goes into he goes into Norway to get the Tesseract, and he talks about Odin with that, right? And he talks about being with the gods and all that stuff. And so there's an inset of Norse mythology baked into like the Tesseract and all of that. And then there's also when Steve is doing when he's getting the super soldier serum injected into him, they have the injection, and then they're flooding him with Vita rays. I believe that's what they called it, the Vita rays. And that just kind of made me think of, okay, in the Incredible Hulk, General Ross is trying to get this. He's trying to recreate a super soldier serum, and Bruce Banner, what he ended up doing was this is more implied in the movie because they didn't actually do this in the movie, which kind of sucked. But for the Incredible Hulk, he had like a serum injected, and then he flooded himself with gamma rays, which is what created him into the Hulk. So it's a little bit of some similarities there, because the Hulk project, or the project that created the Hulk, was supposed to try to recreate. It was their attempt to try to recreate Captain America. And then also Howard Stark, and that's your connection to Iron Man. Howard Stark is a pretty important part in the whole movie, I guess you could say, the whole plot. Howard Stark is pretty important. Of course, Howard Stark is Tony Stark's dad. So you have these little bits of all of these other things. I also noticed there was an expo and they had like a thing that was like saying synthetic human. I've seen people talk about how that is like the original Human Torch, and there's little stuff like that. Also, um, when Red Skull gets evaporated, well, like he grabs the Tesseract and then he's getting like this. It's like the sky opens up, right? And then he gets like evaporated. Now, spoilers for Avengers Endgame as well. That it really just actually Infinity War, I guess. We find out later in Infinity War that he was actually transported out into I am not remembering the name of the planet, but where the Soul Stone is. That he became the guardian of the Soul Stone, and I thought that was really interesting because I don't think that the Tesseract. I don't think that they were doing Infinity Stones quite yet. I don't think that was the idea when this was made. I don't think so. But by golly, did they like they put down the stone, like they put down the path for it to become the space stone. I don't know. I feel like I've heard something that it wasn't like the Tesseract and Loki's staff from the Avengers were retconned into being Infinity Stones. But it kind of feels like that they were thinking about that then when they made Captain America the first Avenger. It feels like that's what they were going for. It kind of does, especially in retrospect, right? When, knowing that it's a space stone, you see the sky opening up and you're like, space, of course, right? And, especially in the Avengers when they use the Tesseract to open a sky portal, right? It's like, it's like, yes, of course that's the space stone. I don't think that's what they originally intended, but it was a very good retcon. I think that was something that really, really worked. And especially coming back to it as, like, knowing it's the space stone, like, it just seems to fit all together. Except for the whole energy source thing. The whole energy source thing doesn't really make too much sense. But as far as, like, opening portals and all this stuff, that really does kind of make a lot of sense. And then another thing, I also noticed Schmidt also... So there was a point where the Nazis were, they were wanting to see the evidence of what Schmidt was up to with Hydra, and they were like we're not going to be playing with magic here. And Schmidt said something along the lines of like, of course, like he's like, I'm not surprised that you would think that because to you magic and science are indistinguishable or something like that. Kind of referencing in Thor how Thor would say, that your magic is our science, and it's kind of like a mirror to that, another connection to the rest of the universe. And in reference to Thor, the video I did about Thor, now I did criticize Thor for not having proper world building. And so when I was watching this movie, I kind of realized they, in a sense, kind of have to do some world building in this because, yes, it takes place on Earth, right? But it takes place in 1940s, which means it's kind of a period piece with that being in the 1940s. But they still also have to like build out like Hydra. They have to build out the army. Like they have to build out all these different things to help you understand what's going on in the world. Because you can't just assume everybody knows exactly what's going on in the war. But I think they did a pretty good job with that here in Captain America. And it also goes into like the movie is a very patriotic feeling movie. It's kind of fun. It's, you don't get too many of these types of movies nowadays that are like, America, And this one kind of was more of the America kind of thing. And America, 1940s, America, that was kind of fun. Just a extra thing that they put into the movie. As for some of the characters here, I just immediately noticed Hugo Weaving. My goodness, that guy is a legend, I tell you. He's a menace. Like, I think 3 movies that I can think of off the top of my head that I've seen recently with Hugo Weaving is Lord of the Rings, The Matrix, and Captain America. And like he plays three totally different, well, sort of different characters. Like in Lord of the Rings, he's a very he's like that. He's Elrond, right? He's the highest of high elves. But then you have in like the Matrix, Agent Smith, and he's like kind of a menacing villain. And here he's even more menacing as Red Skull. So that's just Hugo Weaving is great. He's a great, especially when it comes to like being a menacing actor. And then I also wanted to talk about Skinny Steve. I think they did a really great job, just like fleshing out the character of Steve Rogers. That's one thing I think really good movies, and especially some of the ones. This is something that Iron Man and Captain America have done really well, is fleshing out its main character, and they really showed why Steve was picked. They spend a good amount of time with Skinny Steve, and in like Skinny Steve, like he seems off. I think the thing that feels most off is his voice, because I'm like his voice is too deep for the way he looks. I used to think that the head was just really janky. I was like, actually this doesn't look bad. His head just does look a little bit bigger than like the rest, like it should be. But I don't think it's not too terrible. The effects kind of held up pretty well in this movie. But I really did like how they developed Steve Rogers, and then also with getting the super soldier serum. It was about picking someone who like someone with like higher morals, because it elevates whatever you have in you. It elevates that. So if you have someone with moral, like who's a very moral person, that elevates that. That's what Steve Rogers was. And if it was like with Red Skull, it took him and it made him more evil. We also see this in John Walker later on. This is past. This is what Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? When Falcon gives up the shield and John Walker takes it, he ends up getting a super soldier serum, and that elevates him out. But it also, like, he has some pretty negative personality traits that elevate, and it kind of just shows why Steve Rogers was like the perfect pick for Captain America. So overall, I think this movie was definitely better than I remembered it being. I think before I had it rated at like a 6 out of 10. I was like, yeah, it's good, but like, whatever. But as I was watching it today, I was like, mwah. Like this was a lot better. This was out of all the movies, out of the MCU movies, like I was starting to feel like, yeah, with like Iron Man 2 is kind of a little bit better than like a lot of people talk about and a lot of people give it credit for. And Thor was just kind of like, yeah, it's kind of, Hulk was good, but it was a bit more of a character study, and it just wasn't really scratching that itch. And Captain America, I was like, you know what, this is really solid. I'd probably give it more of something like a 7.5 out of 10. I think is probably what I'd put it at right now. I don't think I would say quite an 8. Especially with superhero movies, they kind of are a little bit more difficult to really get up to those really top tier. We'll see how it goes with like phase 2 and 3. We'll see how I feel about some of those, because I think that's when the MCU really hits its stride. Also, maybe the Avengers goes to an 8. That's actually pretty likely, I would say. But phase 2 and 3 is where the MCU really starts to hit its stride. Here, we're still all made by my Paramount Pictures, and I think distributed by Paramount at least, Marvel Studios and Paramount Pictures together, and they're still trying to find their footing with all of these movies. They're still trying to figure things out. So you're gonna get some kind of missteps and whatnot. So I'm excited for the Avengers next time, and of course phase 2 and 3 later on. So if you guys have enjoyed this video, if you guys want to see more of these, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like the video if you did enjoy, and we will see you guys in the next one.